Welcome back to another episode, everybody. My name's Emery Wolf, and joining me is
Nick Lamb.
And we are Just Two Camera Guys, a show where we're going to talk about all things camera. Tonight, we got kind of a fun one. At least it's fun for me.
This is
and for
a little
two
different
reasons.
for you.
Yeah, we'll hit the second reason later, but this is our 50th episode, so we'll talk about that a little bit later when it's just you and I on. But right now on the screen, you can see there is a gentleman waiting for us here who happens to be my boss. So
does it feel like you're at work now, Emery?
Yeah, it's not.
I feel like I should be doing a performance review or something. Like, where are my notes?
Yeah, I might be getting fired tomorrow, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, joining us tonight is Collin Pullar. He is I'm going to say the marquee person of the Bald Leadership podcast. Your name does come up first. Maybe that's the first thing we should talk about. How come your name comes up first?
Sure, it just flowed better. That's really it.
I think
That's
it's because
really
you're
it.
the more important.
Okay, sure. I'll go with that too. I like that better.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about Bald Leadership, the podcast, and what it's about?
Yeah, no, sure. I won't start where it started, but really what it's about is just having literally bald conversations about leadership, right? Just a bald-faced discussion on what it's like to be a leader and develop into one, or some of the challenges that we all face when we're in these kind of roles. And it doesn't really matter if you've got a title that goes along with it, because it can start from anywhere, from being a young kid to someone who's maybe in a position of greater influence, I guess. But so we wanted to have these interesting conversations because me and my co-host and I, we've just thought it would be a good way for us to develop ourselves. So let's talk with some people and find out what it's like for their journey.
Yeah, and those people you talk to, like, they all have like resumes that are beyond.
Yeah, we've kind of been blown away by some people that have been more than willing to share and be really vulnerable with us. But yeah, we've had like young entrepreneurs to senators to former federal cabinet ministers and everything in between. So it's been a lot of fun. Learned a lot of things I didn't expect to learn. And then this whole transition into trying to record this stuff on a podcast was kind of tough. And then even later we said, okay, let's try to do it on camera. And so it's been a bit of a journey, but yeah, great people. We've just been blessed with talent to saying that they're willing to share.
Yeah. Just before we get to that journey of moving to like the camera part of it, I want to ask you about your counterpart there who does the podcast with you, and not so much about who he is. Nick, did you actually look at the website?
Yes.
Do you know who his counterpart is?
I didn't see the link. I'm sorry. My bad.
Classic Nick. Anyways, so his counterpart is Cavis Reed. You may have heard of him. If you're from these parts, you would know who Cavis is. But what I'm really curious about is there's two of you. There's two of us on this show. Nick and I have talked at length how we think like to do these sort of things. Approaching it from the team point of view is always good. Are you finding the same thing?
Oh, exactly. When we started this, and it was really just kind of started with an idea during COVID. To be frank with you, we met years before, and we enjoyed having conversations about different things in leadership that we're suffering through. But we felt, hey, let's start recording this. And we started playing different roles. And, Cavis would say, hey, if you could be Pat Summerall, I'll be Madden. And so my job was really to kind of set things up and let him run with it and then take it back. So I play a little bit of kind of the controller, like central navigation for the conversations. And I kind of let him go wild. He's the intelligent one, so I just set things up and let it happen.
Yeah. So
That's
now,
cool.
How all this started happening, Nick, is we were talking at work, and the podcast is now going to Access TV. And so they're
Oh, no
recording
way.
while they're recording the podcast, which I assume are the podcasts coming out now-ish, but then there's going to be the video of them on Access next month.
Yeah, starting April 9th, you'll be able to catch it on Access TV. If I can do the pitch, it's at 4:30 on Tuesdays, and I think we're just before Pats TV, something like that. So it's kind of a good, really good time of day. It's a night where you don't often get canceled, so I'm happy for that. But it'll be Tuesday night, starting April 9th, and right through to May 28th. We've got kind of that block. And that's gonna be pretty cool. So it'll play on the show there. We'll still have the audio version that'll come out shortly after it first airs on television. So we're going to keep that. We're going to keep adding to that. But the difference with the Access versions that we're really focusing on people who've had impact in Saskatchewan. It's we can talk about the big names like Elon Musk and others who've maybe done stuff in the big business world, but we quickly forget how much we've got, like in terms of homegrown talent and how much we can learn from them. So this has really been a great opportunity to be able to dig in and talk with people who are right from here, or like I said, have had a big impact in Saskatchewan. And so anyways, that's what we're excited about. We each episode is distinctly different. And each person is distinctly different, but there's a lot of commonalities in terms of their willingness to share some of the challenges they've gone through.
That's cool. So do you ever, do you break down the conversation before and after? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, how do you always maintain that calm when stuff's moving so fast? That's a tricky thing.
Yes, it is. I think a couple of things we practiced a little bit, and we found a certain chemistry that flows with us really well. And there's a certain amount of trust that we kind of have in each other, that when there seems like there's going to be a bit of a lull, one seems to know when to pick that up and to take it into another direction. We do very surprisingly very little preparation.
Probably more than me.
Well, we do look up the website, Nick, right? So, I mean, I do that. I tend to take the lead in doing some of the research on the guest in terms of that preparation, typically. And so I will have some background material on the person. It might be stuff that's existing on the web or something that I might know through, just through casual acquaintances. I usually package that, make sure that Kavis has that information ahead of time. We've found a pattern that works for us. So we generally know the types of questions we're going to ask. And we also get some help from somebody who can organize this really well. Ashley does that for us. So she actually has a bank of questions that we've asked every guest. And there's ones that we ask pretty commonly. Like, we want to know the story that, how they got started in leadership and those kinds of things. And we always wrap up with kind of a key question at the end of every episode. And so we find a pattern, and we don't deviate too much from it, but at the same time, if someone brings up something that's really interesting, like, we'll just run with it. And it for some reason, it seems to work out. It's still transitioned fairly well to the television side, which I was absolutely fearful of that going sideways on us. But so far, it's worked pretty good. And yeah, after doing a few reps, you guys are on the 50th, you kind of have a sense of when each other is probably going to jump into the conversation. And that's kind of how we're beginning to see as well. So that's pretty much the piece in terms of kind of leading the conversation is mostly in preparation and being prepared to if someone's got an idea, let them run with it. And we know where we want to end up at the end. So sometimes we have to take a little of a left turn to turn right again. And, we've become pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah, I get a little too carried away. I'm obviously louder than Nick, so I just talk over top of him. That's how I've solved that problem.
Well, I do have a mute button. Like I can just shut it. It's like, I've had enough of you, man.
What's that transition been like for you going from, because you were doing the podcast on your own, you guys were putting in the work, putting in the time, and now switching to TV and having a whole crew around you while you do that?
Yeah. That's been different for sure. Although, like both of us have done something regarding television before. Either, Kavis has spent a lot of time in sports media and having to talk to cameras, and I've done a little bit of that myself. But for us to kind of manage this on our own is a completely different thing. So in the podcast, we're the directors, or largely I'm the director, and set things up. And it went from, we're only worried about the audio, to, hey, let's try to see if we record some of the video on our podcast and save that to maybe run it on a YouTube stream. But it was essentially just the two of us, and now it's like a crew. Now there's 8 or 9 of us in the room, and yeah, it's very, very different. In the podcast, I wasn't really worried about time because I could trim things, or if it goes a little bit over, that's fine. But now, like, I got 48 minutes, and I better get it right the first time, right? And it's like, you got to take breaks. What do you mean I got to take a break? So, we can't spend as much time doing kind of the natural development of the conversation, where we spend a lot of time laughing at each other, telling dumb stories and something that's happened. So if you've ever heard it, you'll hear just about everything. And they're just things that happen in life. Like, I had to get my COVID and my shingles shot. And I think I had my COVID, shingles, and flu shot the same day. Now, I don't recommend it, but I thought it'd be a good idea just to get it all over with. And right. So we'll end up talking about the after effects of that, the hallucinations, and, so we'll have a good laugh about that. And really the intent was to relax people, whoever our guest is. When we had Senator Wallen on the show, we spent an inordinate amount of time talking about the amount of lotion that we use on our heads to make sure that things were soft and didn't dry out in the winters in Saskatchewan, right? We don't have the same kind of time when we're doing it on television because, hey, listen, we want to get it, 18 minutes, boom, we're going to go for a break, then we're going to do another, boom, we're going to go for a break, then we're going to go 15, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back to a 5-minute wrap up. And, so I'm spending a lot of time watching the clock in a way that I didn't. I have to wear pants, which is very different. and like in the podcast, you just wear what's comfortable or not, right? And so, you got to wear pants, we would wear shoes, and the shoes, believe it or not, have become a very frequent topic in every episode. Like, people bring up shoes in the discussion, right? And so one of our guests turned out, I think it was maybe our 5th guest, turned out she had 600 pairs of shoes. But I mean, the whole thing started on was taking care of your shoes as part of developing your own leadership. Is just, hey, taking care of some basic things that everybody would bring up, taking care of their shoes. And they'd comment on, oh, Collin, you shined your shoes today. And well, eventually now it seems to be the thing that everybody wants to talk about. So, but tonight I'm wearing slippers. So this is, and I didn't shine them. So, anyways, but the transition to it, it was a bit challenging, but we had a pretty good sense of what we had to do. We structure our questions a little bit differently. Now I actually go in with a bit of a script because there's video being dropped in, might be images that go alongside of the conversation we're having with the individual. The research becomes a little bit different because we are sometimes drawing images and maybe public images from something that the guest has been involved with. And so I kind of have to draw a little bit of a script while at the same time we want to be very unscripted, right? So we're trying, it's like, look natural, but look over here. And I'm finding more time kind of having to look into the camera like there's another person sitting in our living room. And it's kind of neat. Like I'm actually having fun with it, but it was a little unnerving when all these people are with us, right? And nervous, that thinking, oh, I don't let all these people down, right? So the pressure was a little bit different. It wasn't just us joking around. It's like, no, we kind of have to look like we're joking around, like nothing's bothering us, but at the same time, we kind of have to deliver. So anyways, all that to say, we eventually started to get used to it, but it's it is definitely a transition.
And then, so do you just take your audio? You'll get your audio from them and you can reuse it for the podcast, or is it going to be a separate thing going forward?
No, we'll be able to take all our audio and video. Now Access has first exclusive rights to do the first broadcast, and so that'll be for a period of time. But we'll be able to move it very quickly in our audio, our audio view version. So after the first episode airs, you'll be able to hear it on Spotify or whatever podcast channel about a month later. So that'll be really great. There's a couple of bodies that are really interested in kind of running it on their website because they do a lot of emphasis on leadership and business, and I've already kind of reached out and said that they're interested in that. So excited about that because I think the people that we talk to have a lot to offer and don't often get kind of this opportunity to kind of speak from really an honest perspective. And, they're not scripted. Like we try not to tell people anything that we're going to ask them. We'll say, well, generally we're going to ask this and this, or we're going to try to do this within these timelines. But I don't want them to know what we're going to ask them, because it's supposed to be a conversation that is really real and authentic, and people have responded really well to it, and they feel safe. Again, like, we spend more time trying to laugh at ourselves to help them feel like it's a safe place to have a conversation. And I got to tell you, sometimes the conversation maybe get a little emotional, and sometimes I've wondered, oh my goodness, like, should we shut off the camera or do we let it run? Because what's being said here is really, really important, and I think people need to see how important it is, and that's kind of the only way that you can really articulate that without disturbing what kind of the authenticity of the moment. We just can't. I don't want to break that up. So suddenly I'm going, gee, like now I've got this new hat on. So like, anyways, I think it has been a learning curve and a lot of fun doing it that way. And I mean, it's kind of like this.
Oh, that's great. We also have a very emotional moment in our show, Emery, where we've got the Shelf of Shame, where we discuss a piece of camera equipment that we purchased but never used.
That we've just wasted money on.
It really touches the heart, too.
It does. It hurts a lot sometimes. I wanted to circle back to a few things. You were talking about shoes. So just like a little technical thing in there that I think's like a little bit different for you. I know when I talked to you before, you talked about them cutting away to your shoes. What's that sort of like dealing and seeing with that stuff happening in real time, and like how does that sort of affect that conversation?
Well, it actually brings a lot of things to life. First of all, it's very awkward to have people stare at your feet. Suddenly, I never felt so awkward. But when the guest brings up a topic and the visuals, like seeing what they're talking about, it changes the sense of the discussion. Like, you feel very, very different. And I know you want to talk about shoes, but if I can give an example, one of our guests actually was Jim Hobson, and he'll be our guest on April 9th. Jim Hobson, as you probably know, is been going through a significant battle with cancer. But we had a couple of images that brought back a lot of memories for him that, would pop up, and it changes the whole sense and feeling of the dialogue that's happening just by having an image available. And, whether it be, there was a Christmas party we were at together, and so those kinds of things suddenly bring a whole lot of life and color to a discussion that you often miss, maybe just in a singular format, like just the audio format. And I would say the same kind of thing happens when we're staring at, suddenly we're pivoting to shoes and we're all having a good laugh about it. And it is, it lightens the mood, but at the same time, it kind of drives the message that the person is trying to share. So but at first time I was very uncomfortable, and and I made sure that they were really polished up after that, because I didn't know if they were going to cut away to our shoes again or not.
Yeah. What have you done, like, for yourself to sort of prepare yourself for that then too, like to deal with how different things have been?
Well, fortunately, I had previous experiences in doing some other television, like, years ago. And the concept of a script, even though I hated the idea of having a script, I would still write one for every guest. I don't have one handy on my desk here to show, but it gives some structure. And I found we just needed to structure things a little bit differently. And it wasn't really to constrain us, but to give the rest of the team an idea of where we're going. And so that's been critically important to do. So we do that with every single guest that's coming in. They have their own customized version. Even if it looks almost identical to the one before, it's got their photo on it. It has some background information. It tells where we want to have an image drop. I may have a question that I may be posing that I know I'm going to ask, but he have a couple of these images prepared. That kind of structure, I didn't really worry about when we were doing the podcast on our own. We just kind of freewheeled it. And, if we run over 10 minutes, what's the difference? There's no constraint here. But there's so many other people that are kind of depending on us to work within the confines that they have to deal with. And I don't want them editing stuff out. Because that's the only other option. Well, we're going to have to clip something out just to make it fit. And, I think it's all really good stuff. So I think it's better that we try to constrain ourselves. So I use that as a tool. But they love it. Like, the team just loves it. You guys seem so well prepared, and things flow a whole lot better. And then when we do kind of go off script, per se, everybody knows we're going to come back to this thing. They're not wondering where we're going to end up with it. So it's builds a lot of trust with the team. And we originally were supposed to only do, I think our pilot was supposed to be 6 episodes, and they thought, oh, this is going to take, a weekend. So the first time we recorded one in a day. So we were only going to record one. Okay, well, that went good. And so, okay, next we're going to do 2. And then we went 2. And then finally it was like, okay, right, we'll do 4 or 5. Because everything started going really smoothly. All it was a matter of was making sure that everything was prepared ahead of time for each guest. Literally, the guests would walk in. We don't want to have a whole lot of talk beforehand, because we want to save everything for the show. The funny little things, the goofy things that happen, the messed up hair or whatever, and so we just walk them in, and boom, we're going. So. But, so the hardest thing to do is make sure that everyone's scheduled correctly. And that's, so it's all been a learning curve, but, now we're pretty confident that we can easily do, 4 in a day, have lunch, have everybody, quite relaxed. Things are fairly well paced out, and we still can go home by 2:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday and feel pretty good about it.
Nice. What's going through all of this and dealing with the folks at Access, what's something that's been a pleasant surprise to you about the whole process?
That's a great question. I think the thing that actually impressed me is how professional the team is, regardless if they're an employee of Access, a volunteer, or a freelancer, it's really hard to tell sometimes who's the amateurs rather, because they do a really good job of trying to train people who are new to this stuff, give them a piece of work that they which way are you pointing?
I'm trying to point to Nick as to who's the amateur, but
Oh,
just so Nick can cut away to that one.
yeah, I can relate.
Yeah. But, they give people, something that they can be successful at. And so if it's their first time behind a camera, it's like, okay, you're going to just run the basics of this camera. But it's honestly hard to tell at times if someone's brand new on something, so that was honestly a pleasant surprise for me. I didn't really expect that. Our goal was to try to, I felt, hey, we got to make this as easy as possible on these guys, because we're using up all of their time. And so I want to make sure that they get the best out of it, which is why we wanted to come in as prepared as possible and make sure people had copies of scripts and they were, really not just receptive to it, they're actually rather excited. So it's, this runs so much easier. So now that we know that, we're actually all motivated to make each other's lives a little easier. So, but I think the biggest element, and this is something that's, very, I'm going to use the word unique to Access, in that they really work hard to integrate volunteers into their system. And I think it's just been a really good learning ground for them, and allows community producers like myself to be able to take an idea, mature it a little bit, and give it some life, and have them give us a start with something that we were just joking around when we started recording our goofy sessions and going on and on about nonsense, and then dropping a little bit of maybe some really good content along the way. Anyways, the chemistry's worked pretty good for us, and I think I think it's something that in Saskatchewan we should actually be proud of, because there aren't a lot of places in the country that do that, not like this.
This is good. I like the takeaway where you have a lot less. I thought you would have more technical stuff, but they're essentially taking all the technical, the camera, the audio stuff off of your plate. But then the part I didn't realize is that it's adding what's getting taken away. You're essentially having to make up for that by being more prepared, having a better outline. So the workload might actually be more on your side now than it was before, even with the technical taken off of your plate.
It's a lot more focused, but you got two guys that are kind of type A's, like we're driven people. And for Kavis, you don't get through a career of professional football and be a professional coach and a GM and talk to people all over North America about recruiting and just like you don't do that without being driven. And so we wanted to do a good job, and we said, well, gosh, you can take all of this pressure off me, so I can't. I mean, I was having a hard time remembering, well, what do I click in order to make sure that we're recording, and can you hear me? Can you hear me? Like, we're going back and forth, and then realizing, oh, that was awful audio, and beating ourselves up over the audio and not being able to focus on the content. Well, it's like, well, now here's our chance to do it. And yeah, it's more work on one end, but like, it's the work we wanted to do. So I have no problem sitting up late and kind of structuring a document so that the rest of the team can just take it. We just run, like literally just take it. It's like, okay, great. I know exactly what I got to do now. Taking all the guesswork out of it. So it's more work in one sense, but it's the kind of stuff that I think that people who are wanting to develop their content, that's what they really want to do. And let folks who are really great and creative in terms of the technical element, let them do that, because that, like, they seem happiest when they're doing that. And it's fun to see, because in the studio, like, we'll record, as soon as we're done, like, guys are high-fiving each other. They're laughing about something that happened during the show. And so it's kind of fun to see them be excited about it, because again, these are volunteers for a large part, and we're using up their time on weekends to do this. I'm like, man, can't you think of something better to go do?
Yeah.
But they are super engaged. So again, we want to try to create something where they're engaged and they're laughing along, and they get to maybe get a chance to be in a room with the celebrity of the day, and they hang out and talk after with people because they have the time and they're comfortable with doing it. So they get to do their selfies, and I'm like, so I'm happy for them, and because of that, and it's just made it a whole lot more fun for me. So the work is it's work, but it's not the drudgery I have to deal with when I'm working with Emery on a day-to-day basis.
That's great.
It's like Emery, not a Jade, right? But,
I know the feeling.
yeah, I'm sure.
It's fun to me too, like that group mentality though, like when you are working in a group and you're really close knit, it always is a lot more fun. Like, and Nick and I were Moose Jaw to Regina apart, and this is the only way we meet. It's fun for us, but I feel like people coming in are always like maybe a little on edge, a little more nervous than we are.
Yeah, we've had people who really weren't certain what they were coming into, and when we were done, they literally said that's the best time they've had in like a couple of years, like, because they're so used to, they're wrapped up in the stress of their work and stress of trying to do their job well, whether it be, if they're a leader at work in a formal sense, or they got stuff in family. But they just said, I got a bunch of stuff off my chest. I had a good time. It was such a positive experience. They go, I wasn't expecting that. And that's kind of neat. Like, I think it's even changed a relationship I have with Cayvis, right? Like, much the same as you guys are, where John and I Moose Jaw, Cayvis is in another province most of the time. And, and so it's allowed us to, people see the relationship as different. They go, how do you guys keep this chemistry? Well, we keep working at it, and it becomes a lot of fun this way. And most of the time Cayvis comes here, we record in person, and it fits some other business into that. But yeah, that's essentially the commitment. People will, and I assume it might happen a bit more afterwards, but you'll get asked to, hey, could you guys speak at this event for us? And we're like, okay, but we're going to run it like a podcast, like regardless of what the topic is, we're going to run it like a podcast. And people seem to welcome it because it is a very relaxed state. And we, the last one we did, I think they thought we were like a married couple, because, I know, yeah, because we were finishing each other's sentences, and it was quite, it was very interesting. So didn't need for that to happen, but after a while that started to happen. Yeah. Well, more information than you probably needed right now.
That's good.
Anyways, I think it's actually funny you talking about Cayvis and your relationship too, because like my daughter started calling Nick my boyfriend, and it's always like, oh, is your boyfriend calling you again? Like, yeah, whatever. Are you jealous, kid, or what? Like,
yeah, sometimes our wives, my wife's Terry and his wife's Darlene. I know they're always asking questions. So we had to go and speak at I told you what happened up in Melfort. Emery, did I show you the? Yeah. So we had we got invited up there by the Prairie Land Co-op. They invited us up to do a talk with, I think it was 220 of their staff. And they set us up in the nice hotel up there. And when we got up there, they upgraded us. They said, hey, listen, we're going to put you in the jacuzzi suites. So we each got our own jacuzzi tub. And I brought like Epsom salts and bath beads and all that kind of stuff. I thought, I'm going to live it. And so Cayvis had a tub too. And so he came up to my room and I gave him some bath salts. And so the next day we're talking about having a bath and how wonderful it is, having the jacuzzi tub, and then I had been sitting in the tub And first I was FaceTiming my wife from the tub. And then I took pictures from in the tub overlooking at my fireplace and the TV on top of the fireplace. But the photo caught part of my legs and my feet, and because of a weird thing with the reflection, it looked like there were two pairs of feet in the tub. So we're showing all these people at this event, and we're talking about our tub. And so one guy says, "Man, that looks like you got 10 toes. You got 10 toes here and 10 toes in." I'm like, "What are you talking about, right?" And then I looked a little closer. Yeah, so Camus's wife said, like, "What? Were you guys in the tub together?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, I saw until we looked really close, it just didn't look good. But
I still think it's your next promo for the show. It's just a picture of you two in a tub sharing like a glass of wine or something. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. No, it was good.
Just a couple more questions for you, Collin, before we let you go. Through all this process, starting the podcast, moving it to TV, what is one thing you've learned about your own leadership through this process?
Well, probably a couple things, but one of the things that actually you kind of have to dream about some of these things. I had a lot of trepidation even about starting a podcast. And I remember even asking you, Emery, like, how do I do this? Like, I really, really wasn't sure. And you just said, well, just start. Now, it's something I knew. I mean, intellectually, I knew I'd just start. But I kind of needed someone to say, well, just go ahead and start. And the mistakes you make, you'll learn from. And I think that same thing continued where we're recording this, and we actually got some, we had like 20, 25 guests or something like that, like back to back, and we did that in like 6 months. And, and someone they were listening, go, "Man, you should do this on television." I thought, really? And then we got thinking about that, and it's like, well, how do we do this? And they kind of said the same thing. Well, you just start. And so in terms of leading, sometimes that's what you kind of need to do is you're not necessarily going to be able to answer every question up front, and how are you going to manage this and how do you manage that technical issue. I think through this process, though, I really felt it was important to have people share their messages about what it's like going through learning to lead, particularly when through difficult things. If I could share, there was a young lady that we had on one of our podcasts that she was 22 when she recorded with us. And I swear she had more maturity than people that I know who were 42 and 52 and even 62, that she had to deal with a significant ethical dilemma. And she made a decision. And she was very vulnerable at the time, just newly married. Her husband had just had a significant, severe car accident. And she was actually feeding him to try to nurse him back to health. And they were not married very long, and this was their only source of income. And she decided she had to leave and do something different and start up her own business. And the fact that she sat down and thought, I need to do the right thing, despite the fact that in the short term it's going to be painful. I thought everybody needs to hear this, because I had a pretty decent career working in a few different places, and I know people that would compromise themselves just simply because they didn't want to leave their paycheck, and then we got to the point where it was actually making them sick. And I even experienced getting sick because I'm like, I can't do this anymore, to the point where I would come home and have a shower after work. Come home, I change my clothes immediately because I just couldn't. I was struggling with this. And here's somebody who kind of said what they decided they needed to do. And so I realized I need to invest myself and give that, or make sure that people got that, regardless of how much time it takes me, because it was something I wish I understood and I practiced earlier in my life. And so, Emery, the question, that you have, what did I learn about my own leadership, is that I think this is something I needed to do and I need to start doing more so. And it's not because I think I'm a great leader or anything like that. It's just, this is something that I needed to learn and others need to learn. And here's an opportunity to kind of share that, regardless of what age person is or what position they have, what their title is. One of our guests, they were talking to a group of 6 and 7-year-olds and asking them, well, what do you think a leader is? And they pointed to one of their classmates and says, well, is Chloe a leader? What do you think about her?
Oh, wow.
And they're like, well, yeah. Why do you think she's a leader? Well, she makes sure that this happens and she looks after her friends. And these are the things that every leader, good leader, should be doing. They should be looking after people. What's the best interest of the whole? And so is it an easy thing? No, but that's why we do it, because it's not easy. And so I think that's, an example of something that's meant a lot in terms of kind of learning along this journey. And I'm quite motivated to do more of this. It's a lot of energy. But I think we figured out some efficiencies that we didn't know were available to us just kind of going through this journey. And so we'll take some more cracks at it. And who knows, maybe it'll be a big syndicated show and I'll get, I'll have you guys on it with me and well, we'll have some fun with it. So anyways.
It's funny. That is not really the response I was expecting, but at the same time, it's funny how you can relate to certain things. So, and I'm not in the same position of you. I don't have to be on 24/7 for my job. But when I come home from work, I do not stay in my work clothes I wear at work are pretty casual, I will say. I'm wearing khakis and a button-up shirt, but I don't even tuck it in because I just don't like the tuck. And then when I get home though, it's I'll throw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt right away. It is the first thing I do, and it's my moment to switch from work to not work and change the clothes out. After Rider games, I have a shower. I always just feel dirty after Rider games, and I shower after every game because I just don't like the feel, whatever it is. And I'm not any dirtier than any other day I work, but just feel that way. You also mentioned a lot of good little things. So my last question I had for you was, if you had a top 5 things you've learned about leadership from your guests, what would they be? I think you kind of given us a few, but if you've got a couple more that you can think of off the top of the head, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Really, every really good leader that I've found, every person we've interviewed, there was a point, some juncture in their journey where they realized it was less about themselves, and it was more about others. And that's when they really started to enjoy it. That's when they really felt that they were successful. And, each one of us go through that. I think that's probably the biggest one for me. And that I think I heard someone speak that specifically, but I would hear that pattern happen over and over again, where they were actually more motivated and excited to see other people succeed or, get a win. And they really felt good about it. And they weren't competing against their own employee. I mean, we all want to do things well, but there comes a point where you're more excited about, it's almost like, when your child gets up on a bike and they're actually riding it, you actually have joy with them when you see them succeed. And, I think that was probably one of the bigger things. That's been one of the bigger things. The other is, we're all going to go through some difficulty as a leader. Every one of them, they may not have talked about it on the show directly about how personally challenging or how many nights they don't sleep and how many things where they're thinking about this kind of stuff, but they'd all said it's worth it. And it's hard to explain why would you want to go through that. So it was worth it. And there's this personal satisfaction, almost like they need to do this. And that doesn't always happen overnight. That doesn't happen every day, but it's, you could tell when it's become a bit of a calling for them, and you could tell in their journey when that switch kind of came on for them. And I think those two things are things that I hear pretty consistently, and I've been reflecting on lots too. And periodically I go, when I go, oh man, I'm so tired. I don't want to do this anymore. And then I go, but I can't, but I need to do this, right? Like, I don't know if I'd be happy if I wasn't doing something like this, in terms of, trying to lead or help a group by, there's something I can bring to this and lead, even if it's in a small way. It's hard to imagine it differently.
Yeah. Well, for everybody out there, Collin, thank you for coming on. Check out the podcast, Bald Leadership. It's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, and eventually coming to Access April 9th.
April 9th is the first airing.
What time?
4:30. And again, we're going to have some great guests over like 8 weeks. And, we start off with, did I say Jim Hobson? And our last episode is Kerry Joseph, and he lands like right at the very beginning of the CFL season. The timing's perfect. So when the season opens, he'll be on. So,
well, that's great.
Yeah, nice, perfect. Thanks a lot for coming on, Collin.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
There. Now you can enjoy your evening, and Nick and I have to talk about 50 episodes that somehow we managed to get through.
Oh, I feel like I should have like fireworks or something,
Yeah.
or a candle. I don't have anything that like pops or glows or.
I mean, it's just, Nick, we should get the confetti from the Pats.
Oh, the confetti, yeah.
We started this, it was a hit leaderboard. So they had a promo, the hit of the game. So the hardest hit of the game when the guys are hitting each other out there. And we got into it. I don't know who, was it you that suggested the hit leaderboard, Nick?
No, Lane came up with it, but I made a little confetti, like a green screen confetti that goes on the screen.
So when the person would win it, we would cut to their face on the bench and the confetti would go up. It was fun.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, Nick, you've made me famous with my stupid little attempt at trying to be a goalie.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. There's lots of people have seen that outtakes video. So, even the scouts for not the scouts. Sorry, he's a player agent. He's up in Edmonton, NHL player agent. So he was going to actually try to, after he saw it, he goes, we should see if we can get you on the ice in Edmonton. I'm like, if they need a geriatric goalie, I'd be happy to do it.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
It was.
No, I
A lot
enjoyed
of
it.
fun.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Anyways,
guys, I'll let you go.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot, Collin.
All right.
See
Thanks,
you.
guys.
All right,
bye
have a
for
good
now.
night. You know what's interesting with the leadership talk, carrying it on, I'll interview or go in and film, like I filmed a lot of CEOs and kind of leaders of different companies. And not everyone, but there's a fairly common trait that I found when I'm interviewing the top of the company versus somebody that's not at the top. I'd say 9 times out of 10, when we're done, the top, the busiest person there, always asks, what can they do to help take down my equipment, to haul it away, all that kind of stuff. It's interesting.
That is a very real thing. Yep.
And it seems like the higher up they are, the more likely they'll try to do something to help.
Yeah.
Even though they're paying me. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's a weird
That's funny.
dynamic, but it's
I've
cool.
never really put it together, but the second you said it, I'm like 100%. Yeah. Same thing with my job too, right? Like Collin, same thing. He's always offering to put stuff away, and it's like, no, go do something.
I wanted
more
to mention
important.
that to him, but I didn't know how to fit it in because he had to leave. Because I remember he did offer to help take away some of the gear before he left.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly common trait that you find amongst.
And I'm pretty sure I shunned him that day too at the SJ shoot. I was like, no, Collin, get out
Well,
of here.
usually you'll just
We'll
be
deal
like,
with it.
you know what? I appreciate the offer, but to be honest, it would be by the time I brought you up to speed as to how everything goes away, it wouldn't be worth your time. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, but carry on about your day, kind of thing.
I was just shooting in Saskatoon, and so shooting with guys who are the head safety people for like these massive 100-year-old companies, and then go and shoot with like one of their workers who's doing the hammer nails thing on whatever. And it's the big ones that were going like, oh, can I help you take this down? And it's like, it's gonna take me 30 seconds, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's an interesting trait, and that would be a fascinating discussion. Just how he's focusing on kind of leadership and stuff. Interesting. I wish I could lie though, because when they ask if I've seen it, I just can't. I don't know what it is. I've got a problem. There's my ethical dilemma. I should have mentioned that.
Honestly, I like putting you on the spot with that.
That I worked through, and I feel like I'm probably on the same page as that woman that quit her job over the ethical dilemma, me saying that I hadn't checked out the website.
Do you know what though? Here's the thing. Like I send you a pile of crap for this podcast all the time. I'm pretty sure you read about like 2% of it.
No, I read. To be honest, I really got into that. I got kind of sidetracked with the red sale and stuff, and that was the stuff that I was more interested in and went into it, and then I just never made it back and totally forgot about it. So that's on me, to be honest.
Nah, whatever. It's not a big deal. What I was gonna say is like, even though I know that that's a good possibility what's gonna happen, that you're not gonna look at it, I get the entertainment of putting you on the spot on it, and that brings some joy to my dark heart.
It does bring some joy into your life, which is good.
And then the other thing too, I actually think like, I used to say it in film school all the time too, right? Like dummy logic. And like, if you don't know anything about it, you're probably going to ask a good question at some point in time, because like something is just not going to make sense and you're going to want that clarification. And honestly, it's usually worth that time to get that question asked.
Fair enough.
So there you go. But yeah, I was going to say too about your leadership and like helping out. I actually think that's probably one of the key traits that leaders have, is they are willing to help.
Yeah. Willing to help out. And I do like the other thing that Collin said there, and it's so true. It's not as much about you, but it's more about putting everybody in a position to succeed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the name of the game, really. Helping out where you can and putting everybody in a position to succeed.
Yeah, like since you started editing these, and just I was like, what can I do? And I started doing that screen record because I'm like, oh, maybe this will help them, and just threw it. I don't even think I told you the first time I did it. I was like, yeah, I put the video up. And you're like, oh, that was great.
Yeah. Did you see what I did on the last podcast?
Yeah. That was perfect. I liked it. Because, we're not going to point fingers, but somebody messed up.
I had to re-record it because the first one, I sounded really blamey when I played it back, and I was like, whoa, I need to tone that back a little bit, because it was like, Emery didn't record it, now it's kind of sucks, basically, was what I said.
Yeah, I basically ruined the entire podcast.
Stop watching now.
Anyways, Nick, this is our 50th episode. What the hell? How did we get here?
Yeah. Well, you know what's weird? 50 is a lot, but I still feel like we've had more episodes than that. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we don't record. We kind of take summers off usually.
Yeah, well,
and then
we've done like some other like shorter video thingies that weren't like full things. We started doing these PSAs at one point in time where we had like 5 of those or something.
I kind of like the PSAs. Those were good.
Yeah.
You didn't like them?
No, they were good. It's just everything seems like so much more work.
Yeah, fair enough. The nice thing about the longer format stuff is, maybe that's the Collin was saying that they're not afraid of work and they're into it. But I feel like the core tenet of our operation is do as little work as possible.
Yeah.
The exact opposite.
We're not getting paid to do this. It doesn't really benefit us in any, like, I mean, think about this. We have 50 episodes on, I'm going to bring it up here, but I believe on YouTube we have 51 followers. We should have maybe focused on getting more followers than episodes.
Well, we've put essentially, here's the interesting part. And this is, we know how to get followers and how to build an audience. That's just has not been the goal in any way of this show. This show has just been to have a conversation about cameras, camera gear, camera equipment, and
camera gear and camera equipment are the same thing, Nick.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I was thinking software, hardware, but then I used the same word for, like I was thinking the computer side and the equipment side, but then it came out as both equipment.
I just like the look on your face.
It was like, wait a second, I didn't say software.
Yeah. We used to talk about, like, if we ever get to 50, it was almost like this fictitious thing. I wasn't actually sure we were going to get there. Were you?
Well, there was a while there when we hadn't recorded in a bit and it could have went away.
Yeah.
But then I feel like now that we're rolling kind of on an every 2 weeks, that it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Once you stay in the habit, for sure.
Although ours was once a month last time, but that's irrelevant. Plus, I feel like our audio has gotten better since the Adobe Podcast Audio Enhance has come around.
Yeah,
so it's a lot more listenable.
Actually, what's funny about that too is, like, now, because you've started doing these as well, which makes my life a hell of a lot easier. But I also feel like half lost in it too. Like, if I had to do one on my own, I'd be like, I don't know where to start.
It's pretty easy. So my current format, which is slightly more work, but I think is going to be a lot more beneficial, is I'll take the 3 audio tracks, and I need to compare my audio track that I record with the one that you record and send me and see if they're identical. But I'll take the 3 audio tracks, send them to Adobe Podcast, enhance them, and then put each one onto the timeline and just use those and mute the master one. When I say 3, I'm assuming it's a guest. So
yeah, I'm honestly probably going to do some of that with work as well. So we recorded a bunch of interviews. I'm going to pump the interviews through Adobe Podcast and then resync them and use it like that. So I was saying before too, just thinking about, like, when we got to 50, you've always had these, like, delusions of grandeur that we were going to give stuff away. We're going to have all these massive fans and we're going to have giveaways. Are we going to give something away?
Did I have a giveaway thought for this? So the delusions of grandeur, I have that in everything. So I kind of assume everything's going to be successful at a certain point. But I haven't, well, I shouldn't say we haven't ever decided that we want to make this a successful thing. And I don't know if this format would ever be super successful. The successful version of just 2 camera guys is we shoot a bunch of shorter videos and funnier videos. And if the entertainment and the information stuff's got to be a lot shorter and a lot snappier, but that's a lot more work too at the same time. There's a way to do it. It's just a matter of if we want to do it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look up I don't even know what to search, but what are the best podcasts about cameras, about video, photo, photography?
I think Fro Knows has got one. Gerald Undone and Make Art Now do a podcast together. I'm trying to think of anybody else.
This Week in
Can't
Photo?
think of any. Yeah, there was one of them that it was like that attic photography or something like that I used to listen to, but
No. It's a shame that just two camera guys isn't on there. I don't
who
know
knows
how.
what the future holds.
I don't know how it isn't. Do you have anything to give away?
Ooh, wow. I'm just like looking around my desk right
What-
now.
What is
What do I have here?
got this Sharpie that I just right on your gaffer tape with that one.
Well, you know what? I would have had a bunch of stuff. I just gave Ryan a bunch of cables and weird stuff like that. I wonder what I got. I'm sure I've got something out in the garage and with my camera gear that's actually decent. That would be something that we could give away. You really want to have a giveaway, don't you?
Nah, you've always talked about it. I was wondering if you had any ideas. The only thing I could come up with was I screwed up processing 2 rolls of film the other day. So they are completely blank. All my chemical had gone bad and I didn't know it. So when I put it in and washed it, I just washed everything away.
Oh no.
So I have 2 full rolls that are just blank celluloid. If someone wants those, leave us a comment. We will send those.
Yeah, they'll
blank
be
rolls
flying off the shelf.
celluloid
I can guarantee
your way.
that. Get ready to just be overrun with comments.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your stuff went bad. Was it the chemical? Did they have to be refrigerated or something like that? Like how did they go bad?
It goes bad over time. So it was just
But-
old. It was, I don't know if it was a year old yet, but that's like pushing it. I think it's supposed to have like a 6-month shelf life, and I was hoping I could stretch it.
Interesting. I wonder if refrigerating it or freezing it would extend it, or if it would just ruin it.
Well, be a good question for Dave, who we had talked to from
Yeah.
Play Film, which actually is like one of our most viewed on YouTube anyways videos.
Yeah, that was a good one. Should we get back into doing guests? This is kind of fun talking with Collin.
I think we should never stray away from guests.
Okay.
I mean,
We just need to.
there's times we can't, like if we're going to stick to our 2-week schedule. And honestly, I
Yeah.
have a pile of stuff that we can talk about for our next one. I was going to go into my emails. I'm not going to do it. I don't want you to lose the surprise of some of the stuff I'm going to throw your way.
Okay. Okay. I've enjoyed having Dustin on with the movies. Movie talk's been nice. I like that little segment.
Yeah, I think it needs to be a once or twice a year thing.
I think so too. It'd be
So-
nice to have a couple recurring guests that'll come back like that. I like that idea.
Not just Ryan. Although we should have Ryan on again.
We should have Ryan back. Ryan just needs to get a microphone.
Whatever. Maybe, do you know what? Let's talk to Ryan and see if he can't come. Are we going to do next week or are we 2 weeks from now? Because we kind of did this one early.
I don't know. Whatever.
We'll talk
whatever
about
you
it.
want, really.
Let's see if we can get Ryan to come back for that one. And then I will throw these doozies at him and see what he has to say. He'll just laugh.
What are the doozies?
I'm not going to tell you. It's all a surprise.
Oh, now I'm curious.
So stay tuned for our next episode. All a surprise for Nick. I'm not telling him anything. I'm just going to throw random articles of camera related stuff at him and we'll see what he thinks.
Oh, I love this. Can you give me a little teaser? What's one?
Oh, man.
We got 7 minutes left.
The one I want to tell you, though, is the one I don't want you to know. It's the only
Oh,
one I can remember.
okay.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to flip this around. Because what I got to do is I got to get the window of my internet off the screen recording.
I had an
That's it.
interesting filming thing that came up this week here, where Janice wanted me to get some B-roll of the basketball tournament at their school, the hoopla tournament there. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. I'll be in and out in 5 minutes. All I got to do is get a quick crowd reaction and get somebody making a basket. And then the crowd jumping up and then maybe a shot of the players on the bench. So I got my first shot They scored a basket. I didn't really love the angle. I was on the wrong side of the gym. So I went around, got the players, quick B-roll, they called the timeout, everything was perfect. And then I went up and I waited for the shot. And it's a little different from the NBA, I can tell you that. They don't all go in.
We did, I don't know, this is the one I'll tell you about, Nick, though, is we talked at length after one show a while back about all these other things. There was a specific panoramic camera that we've never ever talked about, so that is one thing.
Ooh.
So it sounds like you don't remember that, so that'll be good
I
too.
don't remember it, but I'd like to do some research on a panoramic camera.
This one's interesting. I'll just throw it at you. You can research it after. Anyways, we should wrap this up.
Sounds good.
Do you have any words of wisdom to leave us with?
The words of wisdom. Well, I did words of wisdom last. I think it's your turn for words of wisdom this week. What do you got?
Here is the word of wisdom. Always make sure that little red light is glowing in that corner. That's how you know you're recording.
Well, that is a good word of wisdom. The other word of wisdom was kind of from Collins, and maybe this is something that it doesn't really suit our interview style, but maybe it will eventually. If things get tense or emotional, or the person's really getting into it, just let it go there. Maybe I don't need to make a joke and bring it back to break the tension. Maybe I could just let it go there and then make the joke later. That's really wise.
I was just waiting for you to make a joke. I just wanted you to sit in uncomfortable silence and then make it back.
Yeah.
I couldn't even do it.
I
still can't stand silence. Me, that's wrecking it.
And I did.
All right. Cool. Well, that wraps it up. Thanks for joining us for another episode, everybody. Have a good day, night, or wherever you're at. Just make sure it's good.
Number 50. Wow.